Muchas gracias. Buenos días. Today I'm going to present this research, but in English. This research we introduced by this abstract we wrote with the professor Rita Occhiuto, which is called In Folds of the Rail-terraces, Herstal Wisdom's Landscape Laboratory. So this specific work was an opportunity to come back on a study, on the case study of Herstal, which is a post-industrial city located next to the city of Liège in Belgium, which we already studied before last year through research by architectural project. And today this case study was an opportunity to learn seeing intelligence, or even the wisdom of these places built by human cultures, which allow to tame and so to master their environment. This form of wisdom, based on as an heritage, which is always visible through its special traces, which take different forms, uses, or rhythms. So our research takes interest in the variety of practices and interpretations by focusing on the dynamics engendered by the deep transformation of the slopes, which are used as a support for the development of a major infrastructure, which is the railway. This study further questioned the meaning of this terraced well in the Herstal landscape. It's including descriptive reading of the case of study and the involving of context it generates. And then by returning to the meaning of the terraced landscape, we can evaluate the meaning of landscape heritage and reconsidering all kinds of territory and the forgot wisdom. And then through this critical reading and interpretation of the Herstal context and railway terraces, by inserting our reflection in the philosophy of the European Landscape Convention, the aim of this work is to allow the projection of hypotheses for an evolving territory and contemporary wisdom for this terrace rail of Herstal. So, to introduce this case of study, Herstal, which is located on the left bank of the Meuse Valley. Oh, sorry. Okay. The Meuse Valley. Next to the city of Liège, which is right here, and here is Escuela. So it's located next to the left, on the left bank of the Meuse, and plays a very important part in the industrialization history of Liège Valley, and more precisely in the development of the underground work, and so the mining activity, which today leaves emergencies on all the city. development had been allowed by the presence of the alluvial plain, crossed by the river of the Meuse River, and then by the establishment of the railway, which inserts on the slopes. This one is virtually inserted in the Herstal territory for making sparing use on space. This infrastructure, which is neither on the plain nor on the plateau, inserts to the slope by occupying a place in between, which had never been considered as a place fitted for the living or even the housing. So indeed, even if this river or slopes had represented for a long time hostile space for human occupation, with the industrialization, those became the most adapted place for establishment of transport infrastructure. In that way, the rail inserts in the landscape cultural cycle, which is the journey of man, but also of material. So, by transforming this natural primitive slopes, the artifact brings new, linear, dynamic, and nourishes the territory. It draws new limits of the plateau, but also of the plain and the valley, and so no, it's okay. So in this case, the mutation of the slope landscape, which was initially steep and wooded, had been leading to an agricultural form, but at the contrary to an infrastructural one. But if the rest landscape are the result of deep remodeling of the natural space morphologies, it usually refers to agricultural production, and so to environment with vegetal future. By considering these other spaces produced by this structuring place mode, we uncover new type of artifacts like infrastructures or various ways. So even if those are built and doesn't represent agricultural exploitation or natural space, this infrastructural terraces doesn't destroy the place, but give them life and give life to innovating artifacts and specific environment. So this radical transformation of the primitive space, at the contrary of the over-simple critique based on the opposition natural space or artificial space, it allows the extension of the field of investigation and put in motion the intention and the idea of landscape, culture, and heritage. The train infrastructure of Herstal can be considered as a form of territorial knowledge and practices which are respectful of nature, or even heritage which represents the specific characteristic of Herstal, which came from the close link between nature and human action on the territory. It deeply questions the relation that exists between natural seats and artificial mode of transformation, and it bring out a real thinking about sociologic and cultural aspects that represent such a creative reinterpretation of those laws, which are the terraces. So in this new system of the territory, which progressively reinforced, progressively reinforced by the infrastructural rail-terraces that represent the railway, and embankment, the slopes serve dialogue between high city and low city. And generates industry, housing, as well as places of communication and travel. Indeed, that deep transformation of the morphology firstly sustained the longitudinal dialogue, but and longitudinal development of the industry, and all along the Liège Valley, and irrigates the territory. Then this infrastructure entertained and developed transversal relation, which built fabric with built fabric by bringing activity or attractivity of the industry, with which leaves emergencies on the territory today. This creates a specific context which generates by location of the rail. But yet, this vital infrastructure became invisible and expressed a joint space. Indeed, decentralization marked the end of the work time, of the attractiveness of knowledge and wisdom development, as well as the care of the territory and the population. The situation leads to degradation of the rail structure and its subsidiary landscapes, which are suddenly dispossessed of meanings or past uses. By becoming this margin place of the city development, the rail doesn't entertain dialogue with the low and high city anymore, and is in marge of the city development. This situation endangers the perpetuation of the wisdom revealed in this kind of place and lead to the decline of localism. But it's also this situation also gives a chance to the nature to spontaneously insert the abandoned place. And today, this context is an occasion to re-question the future and the evolution of the wisdom, and the possibility to retain useful elements for the revival of prospective vision, and start a new phase of re-enchantment of the wisdom, knowledge of rail terraces and its context. And so this idea had been projected by an architectural project, as I was saying at the beginning of the speech, that we realized last year for the case study, which referred to the philosophy of European landscape convention by the idea of landscape observatory, but also to the landscape laboratory. In this idea, the revival of a new cycle has to be supported by setting up a landscape structure which brings a support and supports territorial creativity and innovation, reinforced by knowledge learned by reading and comprehension of past on landscape. In this idea, the revival of valorizing the importance of that infrastructure in relation to natural materials, we would start a new phase of enchantment based on the steep slopes, reappropriation, and the living experience of the place. This intelligence of location of the rail, level if this rail transport materials, people and ideas in urban modernity of the 20th century, this terraced landscape will support movement and inhabitant exchange and natural component this reinterpretation of the old wisdom allows to recreate the link with forgotten material and landscape. So the natural and human exploitation and draw of the folds and terraces insert a tool of regeneration and development of nature. And the idea linked to one of the forms of landscape development suggested by the European Landscape Convention progressively takes shape of a new kind of infrastructure which integrates into the existing built terraces. It puts in movement the idea, the spirit, and even a new culture, which allow to observe and understand the cyclic movements of nature and sustain the idea of landscape laboratory. Nature and culture transform these terraces into folds, paths, journeys, and became a cultural structure which breathes and make mind travel. So this project experience witnesses to importance to launch new dynamics coming from a deep observation of existing hybrid landscapes, and now sits deprived or of their identity needs to be studied again, and in order to reestablish last relationship by new vision, with the project. It can. Sorry, I started again. So the new vision by the project cannot be promoved without a deep process of sorry. And so create new enchantment mean. It makes people able to recognize again natural characters and to emphasizing it again. So recognize ancient wisdom mean to reconstruct mental capacity to relink human to their own lands, reshape Herstal slopes, terraces and falls could be a way to give a new life, a new mental links with new landscape artifacts. And so we can ask this question: can rail-terraces reveal reverse relationships now? And we can answer that landscape observatory is a way to accompany a long-term process in which architects have to be engaged. Thank you.